Good afternoon again. Gentlemen, welcome to the panel. Thank you. Amit, let me just start with you. Investors have cash but lack ideas. Entrepreneurs have ideas but lack cash sometimes. Other than capital, what does a PE firm bring or should bring to the table?
First up, thank you very much for the kind invite, and it's an absolute honor to be here. All my life, I've been one of those prescribers, so it's very good to be on the other side of the table for the first time, to be able to enable drug manufacturing. I think private equity is a double-edged sword. Private equity pretends to be very smart with its capital, but there are very few times where I believe that private equity actually helps and enables. And let me give you a prime example. Value creation is probably the most abused word by every private equity individual. And there is this great belief that the PE guys are smarter and they will show up at your doorstep when I talk about entrepreneurs and pretend that we will change the world. I think from our perspective, PE provides discipline. PE provides initiative of thinking bigger. PE enables a pathway because PE is laser focused on exit. And for that exit to happen, some amount of value has to get created on the balance sheet. And it's not just about the balance sheet, it's about what we do with the business. And lastly, PE enables a global outlook. And it enables to get the best from all across the globe and bring it to that particular instance.
Thanks, Amit. Utpal, let me just bring you in on the conversation. Amit spoke about the role of PE, but you're a management expert also, and Peter Drucker once said that culture eats strategy for breakfast. How important is culture, particularly when you're talking to an audience of SMEs, creating a business from scratch up? What is the importance of that, and what are the important key factors that are important in building a culture?
Thank you, Ramesh. And let me reiterate that it's a privilege to be here amongst all of you. Thank you for inviting me. And it's a privilege to be on this panel with two giants of this space. We are big believers of culture. We think that the world is driven more and more by intangibles rather than by tangibles. And culture is the foundation of those intangibles. We feel that culture embraces every component of business. It embraces the customers, it embraces the employees, it embraces how the employees deal with the customers. However, it goes beyond just business. It also goes to how you think about risk, how you think about capital allocation, how you think about longevity, how you think about the value drivers. So we feel that culture is very fundamental. And if I may add to the question that was asked to Amit, I think private equity investors like Amit bring in that recognition of those intangible factors which go into making up the culture of a company. They identify those well and help fine-tune it, help sharpen it, and help leverage it. So I feel that culture along with private equity is a good combination for most businesses and entrepreneurs.
Utpal, you talked about some intangibles, but let me bring you to the more tangible world, both of you to the more tangible world. I know a common investment that both of you have is a company called Concord Biotech. How did you approach it? You were the first early investor, Utpal, into that company. In terms of culture, in terms of understanding private equity, what did you bring to the table and why was Concord special to you?
Okay. Before I answer that, Ramesh, I will just make a small distinction. Given that I represent Rare Enterprises, we are not private equity investors.
Right.
We are a proprietary asset management firm and therefore have a time horizon which is longer than most private equity guys.
You're not laser focused on the exit.
Yes. We are not laser focused on the exit. What are we laser focused on? We are laser focused on terminal value. And therefore, we invested in Concord sometime in 2006. It's been 16 years and we are not looking for an exit.
Amit's shaking in his boots. What are you doing? No, but what attracted you? Yeah, let's get to that part.
So, here was a gentleman who had given the technology, who had come up with the technology to make, I think, one of the statins, and sold that technology to Teva. So,
the Israeli giant.
The inherent skill set was established. Now, here he was, he was an expert on fermentation technology. However, he was not going for the high volume, low value products. He was going for high value, low volume products. And within that, he was focusing on immunosuppressants. He was the least cost producer of immunosuppressants worldwide. And we loved the focus on immunosuppressants because we felt that in the pharma space, we've always valued businesses catering to chronic diseases much more than businesses valued which are catering to acute diseases. Here, not only was he addressing a chronic disease, but it was a non-switchable chronic. In the sense, once you start with one particular immunosuppressants, it is very difficult to even switch the brand. So, non-switchable immunosuppressants catering to lifetime consumption of that medicine and being the world leader in terms of the least cost player was a very attractive proposition, and hence we invested in that.
Amit, let me come back to you. PE firms always tell me they look for huge marketplaces, huge opportunities. And here Utpal's saying, I'm looking for a specialized market, dominating a corner. What is your thought on that?
So I think I come from a slightly different plane, and if I could use a few minutes to explain who we are and why we do the madness that I'm going to tell you. We are probably now the largest healthcare dedicated private equity investor in Asia. We have almost $2.9 billion of assets under management. And we only do Asia, and we only do healthcare. 40% of my portfolio is sitting in pharma. At the cost of sounding arrogant, our capital is slightly smarter because there is a certain amount of domain expertise that we bring to the table. There is enough capital sitting in this room. There's a lot of capital which is far smarter than me and my outfit. I think what we are able to do is speak the lingo, connect the dots, get the best opportunities from across the globe, and shamelessly borrow. That's what we do. I certainly believe, and post-COVID is the right time to have this discussion, that this room should pivot away from the volume game that we've been playing for so many years and get as specialized and as niche as you can. The volume game will continue to have pricing pressures, which we are seeing not just in the US, but also in the rest of the world and our domestic markets. But what you can't take away is when you get specialized. So coming back to your question, what did we see? A great entrepreneur utilizing fermentation technology, which is not chemicals, but it is a marriage of biology and chemistry, backed by a well-reputed asset manager, which Utpal did not mention, are far smarter than we are. That's the reason they're not exiting. And more importantly, we thought we could enable them to grow bigger, faster, and quicker. That's it. So for us, the horizon for timeline and exit exists. That's a true fact. Unlike Utpal, that's not my capital. Unlike you, it's not my capital. I'm a custodian of somebody else's capital. But I think by hastening the process and bringing the process to a finite exit event brings honesty and rigor back into the company.
Right. But you also said, Amit, that in terms of healthcare, you believe that private capital is more important than public capital. Why would you think that?
Sir, I'm sitting here speaking to you post-COVID, where there is not a single nation in the world which can claim that they did a good job in COVID. Not a single one. There are examples of socialized medicine, public medicine, private medicine in the US. We all failed. As I sit here and I look at the Indian healthcare landscape, we in the public sector and the governments will never be able to spend enough healthcare dollars for this reality to change. The reason why I'm a big backer of private capital, because the government will succeed to a certain level. I would like public dollars or public rupees to be spent on rural infrastructure, prevention, and augmenting the primary healthcare centers and not wasting money trying to put up tertiary quaternary care hospitals or enabling large public sector pharma companies. My firm belief is that specialized medicine, specialized healthcare will get delivered more efficiently by private, while things like prevention, vaccination, and public health should be delivered by the government.
Okay. Amit, you also said, which I use in the introduction, that on any given day, 3% of the global population, that's a great stat, 3% of the global population is not feeling well. That problem represents an opportunity for somebody. And where is the opportunity for our delegates out here?
So I think COVID, and now I'm speaking as a doctor, not as an investor. I spent 35 years of my life practicing as an intensive care medicine expert. And what I ended up realizing is that the whole system is flawed. It's flawed from a perspective that we are so busy treating people who are sick that we are not spending enough time, money, energy to prevent people falling sick. We will never have enough infrastructure. You will never create enough drugs to treat all the diseases in the world. You will never be able to do it at price points that we need. So at the end of the day, there are 4 pillars that will change the paradigm of healthcare. It's all about accessibility in our country, especially in rural and tier 3. It is all about awareness. So people will need to be made aware the same way we made, everybody now talks about RT-PCRs as if it's like, it's some technology that we were born with. It's a very sophisticated technology. We will have to make it affordable in India. So regardless of whatever we do, the price points have to be at a level that makes sense. And the word that we should be talking about in this room a lot is all about quality. Quality cannot be junked at the price of, because of price. We have to have now a focus on creating high quality, and this room is testimony to it, that we in the pharma industry are viewed as high quality producers. But now let's stay focused to start creating value. Get away from this volume.
Move into that specialized segment. But you're not necessarily a big advocate of Indian innovation.
I should be careful how I word it. Indian innovation is a bit of a challenge. And I think some of it is cultural because we don't grow up in a very innovative ecosystem, whether it's our education system, it's how we create companies, the scarcity of resources, initially financial and otherwise. So I think innovation can be done, but it will be done in very few pockets. I do believe that we are very good as a country at making something better when it's already good.
It's called the Jugaad economy, I think. You didn't want to use the word.
I'm actually not a believer in Jugaad. I honestly believe that we are much better than Jugaad.
Okay. Utpal, let me ask you, your boss, Rakesh, who was also supposed to be on the panel and couldn't make it because of ill health, amazingly, he's a great judge of talent. If any of these delegates were to approach you in the lift and give you the elevator pitch, what would you look for? What is the characteristics that you're looking for?
Sure. So, Rakesh is a big believer of understanding the big opportunity, and I fine-tune it and polish it and call it mega trend. So we would like to see a company going after a really big opportunity, which is a structural opportunity, which is not a tactical opportunity. Secondly, we would like to see some leadership attributes there, either being the least cost player or having the highest market share, or having a competitive edge or a moat, which will ensure that they can keep out delivering on others. And when we get this interface of megatrends and leadership, then that is a great combination for us to have. While that is a necessary condition, it is not a sufficient condition. The sufficient condition then comes to the management team. The culture and the mindset of the management team is what we try to assess. Initially, it is a judgment call, but over a period of time, it helps us fine-tune our exposures. For example, you've seen Rakeshji buy Titan at a very different price point. But over the years, as his confidence in that management team and his conviction in the megatrend and the leadership both kept on rising, he kept on adding to that position.
Instead of selling, he's scaling up.
Yes. So I think this probability adjusted scaling up of our investment bets, or rather investment positions, is very important to us. But the starting point is the confluence of megatrends, leadership, culture and mindset.
And you're able to judge this, or at least your boss was able to judge this in an elevator pitch? I mean, is it something that comes instinctively to you?
See, we've had our share of lemons. It's not that we don't make mistakes. We do make mistakes. However, the idea is when we make it right, we get it right, it's a big one. For example, we talked about the investment in Concord. We visited them in 2006, flew to Ahmedabad and met the promoter for the first time on that day. And by the evening, we had a term sheet signed. There is probably no other investor of
that quick on his feet.
Yeah.
If you could share, what was the size of that investment at that time? Do you remember?
It was about 30
crores or so?
Between 30 and 40 crores.
30 crores and 40 crores immediately. Speaking of investment, Amit, let me come back to you. I'm sure in 2020, Jan, you were a different investor than the one you're today. What has changed, and what has changed in the world of medicine also?
Actually, what's changed for me, we raised our fund in April of 2020, just as it was escaping from Wuhan, and it was starting to show that this was not normal. This was something that we had not seen before. And actually, as I sit here in April of 2022, I am far more bullish, far more optimistic, and clearer that the world of medicine has changed fundamentally. And we investors, and in fact, anybody who's an entrepreneur in healthcare, will have to change. And let me give you some examples. For the first time, we saw something that was a new disease, and I'm deliberately calling it new disease because we didn't know how to treat it. In a record time of 18 months, we used mRNA technology, which had not been used before, large scale. We've created at least 10 vaccines that work. We've created monoclonal antibody cocktails that work. And now we are clearer on how to deal with public health policy. The pivot towards telemedicine, the pivot towards ease of distribution, supply chain issues, disruptions across the globe, whether it is shipping or otherwise, is personified, and it's become very clear. I know today that my portfolio companies, their profitability in 2022 is higher than what it was in 2020. And the key decision here was to get rid of all the flap. For the first time, I went back to all my portfolio companies and my team and said, this is a unique golden moment in history, where everything that you thought is how medicine is practiced, how it should be done, how it has been done for hundreds of years, can be thrown out of the window and you can restart. Never ever in our lifetime did we get a white drawing board all over again and said, let's start. And that to me is something that we take away in this room by saying, how do we get more efficient? How can we change? And any paradigm that you thought that this cannot be done. Getting my doctors to see patients on telemedicine was a complete no-no. Now the doctors themselves were saying, yeah, I want to do telemedicine. I don't want to see a patient. So to me, this is what has changed. The problem that we have with humankind is that as soon as everything changes, we go back to our bad old habits, and that's where I think we need to hold our feet to fire and use this moment in history to become better.
To paraphrase, perhaps poorly, St. Francis of Assisi, he said, where there's despair, let there be daylight. I think you saw the daylight. But we have a IDMA conference where there are a lot of young SMEs and SMEs. At what point can they start thinking of raising capital from Amit Varma? Is it 50 crores? Is it 500 crores?
I think the ecosystem for venture, so number one first, unlike developed markets, I just call it raising capital. I don't get into seed, angel, venture, private, buyout, because at the end of the day, we kind of all merge into each other at a certain number. To me, one can be ready to raise third-party capital, whether venture or private, anything north of 50 to 100 crores. Before that, it's a bit too small, and I don't think you will reach the right set of investors to bring you the kind of domain expertise and help that would enable you to grow. I think I would flip the question around. The question that should be in the room is, why do I need third-party capital? Why do you need private equity? And to me, you should raise third-party capital when three things happen. You have a certain scale or size. For now, let's pretend it's 100 crores of revenue. Number two, you have some sight of profitability. And number three, you should be raising or diluting equity because you are raising money to do something bigger and larger. Otherwise, it's a complete waste of time. Otherwise, you have some other idiot sitting at the board telling you what to do, which you already know.
Utpal, they raise the money, but are you, Amit has said that the next 10 years he sees a bull run in healthcare and pharma. What are your thoughts on that?
You know, I will second what Amit said about the disruption that is taking place. And this disruption is also being aided by the quantum of capital which is available to be deployed. We will probably see the largest M&As across sectors. We will see huge capital being deployed. We will see partnership between enterprise and capital of an unprecedented nature. We will see the ability to evolve business models or redraw business models completely. We will see the opportunity of disrupting supply chains, of disrupting consumer habits, and so on. So I feel that the opportunity scope is much larger and much wider. But at the same time, I feel that it is not going to be tapped by the people who've been doing it in all these years. Because this is, as Amit said, the world has changed. The rules have changed. The game has changed. So how well you adapt is going to be a key test. And this adaptability and learnability of management teams is also an essential part of the culture that we talked about earlier. We feel that the adaptable management teams will be able to make the most of this as compared to those who are less adaptable.
And most likely they aren't the incumbents, but they are the challengers.
I will not rule out the incumbents. I will not say that the incumbents cannot adapt.
But they better understand the need to adapt.
Yes, that is critical.
Can I just add one other comment to what Utpal just said? I do believe fundamentally, and especially in healthcare, the big will get bigger, and the bigger will absolutely need to get better. What we've seen during the COVID turbulation is that a lot of the riffraff got eliminated. And the larger ones, thanks to mergers, consolidation, availability of good assets, have gotten bigger. I think for a country our size, having these kind of volumes no longer is enough. Because if you have to deliver operating cost efficiencies at the back, you will have to have some scale or size before your supply chain starts to respect you. So we will see that consolidation take place, which we are already seeing in hospitals, and we will start to see it in pharma too.
Amit, as you said, let's wipe the slate clean. We've discussed COVID, we've discussed pharma. Let me just put you on a different tack. You're obviously very successful. You're a doctor also. I didn't realize that till I met you. You're a critical care doctor. You meet a lot of pharma companies. So I'm going to give you a question. which I hope can inspire your delegates out here, that of all the people in the pharma industry that you met or read about, living, dead, foreign, Indian, if you could invite any three over for dinner, who would they be and why?
Very unfair question in a room full of stalwarts. I'll try to do my best on this one. I think, let me break it up a bit. I could talk to you about who I feel fascinating and some good reasons, some bad reasons.
Right.
I think the whole Yusuf Hamid Sipla story to me, when I was growing up and was practicing as a doctor, the democratization of healthcare access, to me stands out as one of the things that changed the way medicine was practiced in the emerging markets. So to me, what Dr. Yusuf did is fundamental, phenomenal, and I would take him up in my list any day of meeting up and just chatting. I think the second individual who comes to mind, not for the right reasons, is John Martin at Gilead. I'm a big fan of what Gilead has done in innovation, the kind of products that they've done for your benefit. They've been the world leaders when it comes to hepatitis C drug treatment. But what I've never understood was how they economically ramped up their prices to such an extent that they were so focused on just making money, they lost sight of why they are in the business. And to date, Gilead continues to enjoy the reputation of a very successful, innovative drug maker, but at very high prices. So talking to him, he's no longer there, but talking to him would try and understand why, when you are that successful, why can't you think of the larger good? And to me, the third, from a technology and scientific intellectual stimulation, is Stephen Bancel at Moderna, of what they did by taking a bench treatment vaccine technology, mRNA, bringing it so quickly, commercializing it, and now when you read anything about them, they don't talk about COVID, that's already a has-been. They're already talking about how they will change the world by the next 10 vaccines that they will create. So to me, with Yusuf Hamid sir, it is the past, volume, what you do, Gilead, on what you should not be doing in medicine, at least not today, and then talking about scientific prowess going forward.
Just out of curiosity, so I understand the mRNA part, because it intrigues me. You said they solved COVID and moving on to the next 10 vaccines. So that technology can be used for flu, for polio, or for any other diseases that we have?
Not that simple. Basically, what we've been able to do so far is, when we started off in medicine, we were using chemicals to alter. So we were hitting, if you had a cold, I would give you a 1,000-kilo bomb to take care of it. Then we got a bit smarter and we started to get into hormonal and targeted therapy. What this is doing is getting into and altering the way protein is synthesized in cells. So there are going to be specific diseases which are going to benefit. It's not going to be for all diseases.
Okay. Utpal, I asked him very specifically about pharma. I'll broaden it out for you, because Rare invests in pharma and steel and software. And you generally the point man for a lot of these investments. So in your long and illustrative career, can you name 3 entrepreneurs that have impressed you and why?
Okay. So
You can start with the guy on the left.
I'm no entrepreneur. Thanks, Amit.
yeah, I would say the first person that I would talk about is one Mr. Jagannathan, who is the chairman and managing director of a company called Star Health Insurance. He started the company at the age of 61 or 62, after he retired as the United India chairman, and created a $7-8 billion company between then and now. He's 78 years old and is still so focused, still so driven. He owns about 3% of the company, but even today, that company is closer to him than his own children. It's just phenomenal to see him.
Mr. Jagannathan of Star Health.
Yes.
Fabulous. Again, another of your investee companies.
Yes, one of our investee companies. The second would be Mr. Rafiq Malik. He's the
Metro Shoes.
Yeah, he's the chairman of Metro Shoes. again, somebody who's been so focused in doing only one thing and being the leader and being the best in that space of ensuring that the business model has evolved in such a way that he lasts multiple cycles. It's a 70-year-old business. And on top of that, the fact that when COVID hit, the way this company reacted to it, the mindset to think that this crisis is an opportunity, the mindset to say that I will come out of this opportunity so much stronger than all my peers that it's going to be my moat for the next 20, 30 years.
Really?
Yeah. So that would be the second company that I would talk of. The third company is probably unknown to almost all of you. It's called Inventurous Knowledge Solutions. The CEO...
BPO firm. KPO, BPO.
Yeah, it's a KPO firm. It's run by a guy called Sachin Gupta. But he started off doing revenue cycle management. But instead of the conventional revenue cycle management solutions provided on FTE basis, he started out doing it on a revenue share basis, percentage of the collection. And that one tweak is what has helped him build almost a $3 billion value company in the last 14, 15 years. And it's just amazing as to how he's continuously evolving from an RCM player to a full-scale SaaS company focused on the American medical system.
And just to probe the tenets that you have said yourself, in all your three companies that you mentioned, Star Health, Metro Shoes, and what is the last one's name?
Inventurous.
Inventurous. The culture is there that you admire?
Absolutely. And there are common elements and there are distinct elements.
Culture to them, but there is a...
Yes, common elements being all of them are frugal, all of them are focused. They respect external capital. They respect internal capital. Capital allocation is very, very prudent. And in general, they are prudent. They don't take risks easily. And where they take risks, they manage those risks brilliantly. They are all focused on execution. It's not about big ideas.
Devil is in the details.
Yes, they are all focused on execution. They are all focused on delivering. And to them, they have a sense of purpose. It is much beyond just running a business, just beyond making profits. They have a purpose. And that purpose extends to not just their customers, but also to their employees.
Delivering value, basically, every time.
Delivering value to all stakeholders, and consistently, and over a long period of time. And every little miss pains them. They bring that passion, that dedication to the process.
Got that. Delivering value. As a final roundup of question to you, Dr. Amit, let me ask you, someone asked you this question. I really enjoyed listening to your answer.
I hope I give the same one.
Yeah. Give us a health hack. At that time, I'll tell you what your answer was. You said that use vaccines, don't worry too much about the efficacy. Any vaccine is better than no vaccine. I thought it was a brilliant answer for the time when there was a lot of debate on whether to use it or not. Give us a health hack for 2022.
Health hack?
Yeah.
Prevention. All of you sitting in the room, make it a due diligent habit that on your birthday, go get yourself a health checkup done. I cannot tell you the number of diseases, unfortunately, that you may pick up, but more importantly, the sense of comfort and peace that you will give yourself, your companies, your family, by just making sure that you are trying to stay healthy.
It's not because you're invested in diagnostic companies, right? You just basically believe that.
That's just a minor side comment.
Okay. Thank you. I know it is. Thank you. That's great advice. Prevention is better than cure, as we've learned since almost childhood. Utpal, I'll let the final word with you, but I'll ask you in a different tack. Index is close to 60,000. What is the financial hack? Rare's view of the market, Rare's view of the sector, and Rare's view of a financial hack. Can you give us some color on that?
Okay. If you permit me a little digression, I will say that Warren Buffett made his investment in Apple after Apple was a $500 billion market cap company at an age of almost 90 years, right? And he made $120 billion on that investment. That says it all.
It does, it does. It's actually staggering.
Yes. And that tells me that we have to remain focused on terminal value. There will be opportunities. We have to seize the right ones. We have to commit to them. And the idea is to think of what can be rather than all the ills that we can talk of in the world today. Because 3 years from now, 5 years from now, there will still be ills. It will not be the same ills, but the world will go on. The world has lived through, droughts, wars, viruses, and so on. So I think be focused on terminal value would be what we do. And I'm not worried about markets going down, which they may, but I'm not focused.
But they almost certainly will over periods of time. They'll be volatile.
Yeah, but I'm not focused on trying to time the market. I'm trying to find the next value creation opportunity. It's
always called the triumph of the optimist, and a point I'm sure you know, maybe Dr. Amit Varma also knows, that Warren Buffett created 95% of his wealth after the age 60. Yeah. So I have hope. Thank you, gentlemen. You know, there's an old saying, an Arabic saying, which goes, keep your gold, keep your silver, but give me your pharma wisdom, which both of you have so ably shared today. Thank you both for all the knowledge and insights you've given our delegates today.
Absolute honor. Thank you.